Hey everybody, this video is to try and show you some tips on PowerPoint. The last video I made got screwed up, so I'm making a new one. I've got some buffering here. Give me just a second. Let me fix this. All right, let's do a quick share screen. And hopefully this time my face won't cover up the important details. All right, and so here I've got a PowerPoint slide. And these are the topics that you can see that I want to discuss right here. And so let's kind of get into this right away. The first thing, if you're trying to make a PowerPoint slide, we might want to put the grid lines on if you're going to have to do any kind of animation. So let's do view grid lines. And this just kind of helps when you're scaling things, lining things up, etc. Now, let's say we're going to do a free body diagram or something, and we need to draw an object. So let's insert a shape, and let's just start easy. Let's do a circle. Now, one of the first thing that happens is if you're drawing these things with different sizes, we want to be able to dial in the correct size exactly. So just to make sure this really shows up, I'm going to scoot this over right up here in the top part of the screen. Maybe I'll annotate really quick. I'm looking at these buttons right here. These are very useful. So you can adjust exactly the horizontal and vertical size of different objects. You could use these for arrows, etc. So let me clear that out. And let's just do this. So let's say you want to make an object exactly 2 by 2. So it's perfectly circular. And then you can move this around wherever you want and line it up. You could also use the arrow keys to kind of nudge it around and get it exactly where you want. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just line this up so it's the center of this is right at these two grid lines. All right, so now that I've got my circle centered, maybe I could change the colors and things. You can change the colors. Maybe let's make this one red, and let's have a black outline there. You can also click this tab and a whole bunch of stuff opens up here. And so you can change all kinds of attributes. You could make dashed lines. You could change the line thickness. So notice the line looks a little bit thicker over in this picture now. Whoops. I'm going to undo that. Let me get back to here. All right. So we could do all kinds of things like that. Great. And then when you're done with that, you can just close that out so it's bigger again. What about arrows, right? Let's say I want to have some arrows. Ooh, one thing I forgot to mention here is how to group objects, but I'll type that in here. We might also want to analyze how to group objects. Sorry. There we go. That way I don't forget later. All right, let's say we want to do an arrow. I'm going to insert a shape and look for an arrow. There's different types. So I'm just going to draw it like this. And that's going to be too small to be seen. So one of the things we need to do is immediately change the thickness of this arrow. So I'm going to go back and open up that pane, and I'm going to change the arrow line. Let's just do, how about 3-point? And then maybe we want to make this arrow black. Maybe you want to color code it to be red. I don't know. And then at this point, there's a couple of different things we may want to do. If you want to change the angle, you could actually go up here, type in SOHCAHTOA in your calculator and figure it out. For example, a 30-degree angle, let's say the cosine is 0.867 and the sine is 0.5. Whoops, I think I did that. That looks like a 60-degree angle. I think I might have done it wrong. Oh, whoops, I did. So 0.5 and 0.87. That would be approximately a 30-degree angle. There's another way that you might want to get your angles exactly right. And what you could do there is you could actually take this thing out of here and we could pick a size that we like. Let's say I want 1.5 inches. So again, I'm picking that. Then I can click this rotate objects. And when you hit more rotation objects, you get all these different options. And let's see, which one is it here? Rotation right there. So what I could do is I could type in 30 degrees. Oh, and it looks like it flipped it upside down. That's fine. I could type in negative 30 degrees and see if that flips it up. So you can play around with the angles. You could also do 30 degrees like this and then come up to the rotation and flip vertical. So those are some ways you can get exactly the angles you want. This is kind of nice because if you, let's go ahead and flip that. There we go. Maybe you're drawing a free body diagram and you want to have multiple arrows, and we know I'm just going to hit Control C to copy, Control V. And then what if I want one that's at a right angle? Well, if I click on this, whoops, let's go back to the format options. So in the tab at the top, format, I can rotate 90 degrees and maybe I could rotate it left 90 degrees. So you could imagine how easy it is to have your forces look perpendicular. Like if you have one force parallel to a plane and one force perpendicular to the plane. All right, so let's say we have some arrows there. Now, let's say we get this done, and maybe I'm going to shrink this down. That's not exactly, let's make this, how about 0.35 and 0.35 for no good reason. Now I know that's a circle. I'll stick this up here. All right. You can change the order in which objects appear. So we can send things forwards or backwards like this using the bring forwards. We could bring it to the front. All right. So this is kind of looking like a nice free body diagram here. All right. We've got some objects. In this case, maybe I want to group these objects so I can highlight them. 1, I'm pressing and holding Control, 2, 3, or I could just highlight them like that. And then I could hit the group button, group, and that makes them all a group. And this is convenient because it allows me to move these things as a group without the alignment getting messed up. There is an interesting thing that happens as well, and I'm going to show you this. I'm going to ungroup these. There's a way you could actually, some objects will auto group here. Let me make these both 1.8, 1.8. And if I move this, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very easily, but when I take an arrow here and I draw it, as I bring the arrow close to the object, you'll see some dots appear. If I touch one of these dots with the tail, this object gets linked. Now, I can't tell if you could see this on your screen, but right there, that object or that dot is actually a green dot instead of a white dot. So that means it's been auto grouped to that object. I'm going to clear all my drawings, get out of here. So now when I move this around, whoops, you could see that those objects are auto grouped. And this could sometimes be handy, sometimes be frustrating. So if you're wondering what's going on there, if you get an object where the white circle turns green, it will auto group and link to the object, and you can move it around together. This can be handy, it can be annoying, just depends. All right, so I'm going to move this off of here and maybe make this there. All right, so you can see that's not perfectly perpendicular. We could, whatever, enough said on that. So what have we covered? We've covered all of that. Equations. So this is a step that most people like to do. You want to label your arrows. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this here. I'm going to insert at the top and look for the equation. Oh, whoops. I need to put a text box first. I forgot. So first I'm going to draw a text box. At this point, you could hit insert an equation and you'll get something that looks like this. And you could type in an equation. And I'll tell you more about these shortcuts. All right. Now, because this is hard to see, I'm going to maybe change the font just so it's easier to show you everything. That way this shows up on your screen. All right. What I usually do, oh, whoops, let's make all of this one 44. All right. So hopefully now everything's 44. Good. What I like to do is I like to use this Alt equals command. So I'm going to hit the Alt and then equals. When I do that, Alt equals, it immediately knows I want to do an equation. And now how do I do a superscript or a subscript? That's the first thing you need to learn. So if I want to do a subscript, I'm going to use an underscore initial X. So that would give me a subscript. When I hit the space bar, boom, it takes effect. I could also do a superscript. I could do V with the caret, Shift 6, and then let's just say squared, or whoops, squared. And then when I hit the space bar, that should take effect. Now, what's really cool is you could do both at the same time. So I'll do V underscore initial X squared. Now I'm going to give that a second to show up on your screen. So now when I hit the space bar, boom, that works out. Here's another cool thing. V underscore initial X squared. If you type equals, it also will recognize that. But basically, if you want your formatting to be imparted onto the equation, just hit the space bar. All right. So that is how we do alt equals, and we do the superscripts and subscripts. How about vectors? So vectors are kind of interesting. So I'm going to hit alt equals. Let's say I want to do a force. Force, the quickest way to do it is just backslash vec. A student told me this the other day. They said you can remember this is a backslash because you could think of the feet as being the bottom of the slash and it's leaning backwards. I don't know if that helps or not, but whatever. Okay, so let's say that's a backslash vec. Now I could hit the space bar twice, 1, 2, and that puts the arrow in the right spot. Then I could do my subscript. Maybe this is due to gravity or something, right? Force due to gravity. What about fractions? You could type, the quickest way is a lot of times I'll just type 1/2. And once I type 1/2, I could go back and change this to whatever I want. G M underscore 1 M underscore 2 divided by R underscore 1 2 quantity squared. And then what about a hat vector? This has a, and I think there's a minus sign here. I'm just trying to get a correct physics equation. I'm going to get rid of these grid lines too. They're kind of annoying me right now. So let's see, whoops, view grid lines. That way we could see a little bit better. So in this case, let's say I want to do a hat vector. I could use, whoops. Oh, this will happen all the time. Did you see that? Right now, I'm not in the equation. So if I type R, it's going to screw things up because it doesn't think I'm in the equation. So a lot of times if you get this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the arrow key, the left arrow key. Now I'm back in the equation. So I could type R backslash hat double space 1 2. And that makes this look good. And then I can put some subscripts on. So you could actually get a lot of cool vector symbols like this, the hat vectors and the arrows for regular vectors. What about Greek letters? All right, let me do some more. Oops, let's go down to here. Let's enter Greek letters. So I'm going to hit alt equals. And if I want to get a Greek letter mu for friction, I just type /mu. If I want to do alpha, it's /alpha. Right now, if you don't know all these, this it also does capital letters. So you could do /delta, but you could also do /capital delta. Right. And so the idea is if you spell the Greek letter with a capital letter, you get the capital Greek letter. If you spell it with a lowercase letter, you get the lowercase Greek letter. If you don't know how the Greek letters are spelled or anything like that, that's totally fine. What you can do is you can come up here to the top and look around for different symbols. There's a lot of the common ones that we use. All right. So you can see lots of different symbols. You can also get all the Greek letters, and you could just go through this to your heart's content and find all kinds of different looking text symbols. All right. So there's that. And very often what we like to do is we use trig functions. I'm going to spend a second on these because it turns out when your trig functions are spaced correctly, it's easier for people to read them. And this is a common thing I've seen students screw up. So let's say there's a force X component. That should equal the force times, let's say, cosine of theta. If I just type F cosine theta, this looks kind of okay, but it's not quite right. It turns out cosine, the alignment will look better if you do it this way. F spacebar cosine spacebar, then type the theta. And what this does is the computer will line up everything in the standard way you see it in textbooks. It's just slightly easier to read for people sitting in the audience, and they're used to seeing this. Notice it knows what to do with the italics. Letters in subscripts are italicized, numbers are not. The cosine function is not italicized, but the theta is. And so if you get used to doing this, I think it will be awesome. By this way, this works with other functions too. Like I'm going to hit the left arrow to back into the equation. Let's say I wanted to add a logarithm, right? I could type ln and then spacebar to get the official looking function, and maybe slash. Maybe you're wondering about a square root symbol, right? You can go up here all these different symbols. You could see you can get square roots. You could actually get your sines and cosines this way. You could do integrals, all kinds of different symbols and ways of writing things. All right, I think that's pretty good on the equations and the space bar. Is there anything else to say about this right now? Color coding. I guess that's something I would mention. A subtle thing that you could do to enhance your work is you could color code the force arrows or whatever arrows you have with your equation. So if I make this red, right, you could also make this red. But some people can't see the color coding. And so oftentimes you may also want to use dash coding. So maybe you could come over here and make this, you could say, look, the red arrow or the red solid line arrow versus the black dashed arrow. And this will help people that are colorblind. You can either distinguish by the color or also by what's called the dash type. So those are just some tricks when you're getting started. That's probably pretty good. Let's go ahead and stop that video. I hope that gets you rolling.